This is Strange New Trek, a podcast about the life and times of Captain Christopher Pike. And now your hosts.
Time travel. Time travel makes my head hurt. And Star Trek has never shied away from making my head hurt or time travel. But recent uses of time travel have created some issues. Now, we always have to discuss if we're dealing with a stable time loop, a different quantum reality, and I kind of dislike that. This week, we were talking about the episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, but we're doing it today. I am your host, Captain Jeremy Vilmer. Joining me is my number one dog, Commander Dog, and my chief engineer and cousin, Henry Janeway. What's happening, Henry?
What's going on, Jer?
Don't call me Jer. We got a thing about that. I am the captain. That's like I've told people before. My mother called me Jer. Our grandmother called me Jer. Nobody else calls me Jer. But anyhow.
Anywho.
Yeah, so now it's going to be in the comments. We're talking about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow today.
And we did yesterday, too.
And we did yesterday as well, yeah. So anyhow, what are your thoughts? What's going on? What's new with you and exciting?
Not a whole lot, man. Very excited about the response we got from our episode last time, though.
Yeah, that was cool. We got some good, one of these episodes, I guess we'll probably have to get together some of the feedback and probably address it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we got some good comments, good engagement.
Yeah.
Lots of eyeballs. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in, by the way.
Yeah. And that was your baby. So
yeah. So I'm very excited about that one.
Yeah.
First time doing something like that. So glad it went well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, because typically we focus on Strange New Worlds, but I figure between the two of us, we're both giant Trek nerds in general. So if the focus shifts a little bit, that'll be just fine. You know,
we'll always find something to talk about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now here we are talking about Star Trek Picard Season 2.
Well, it only seems like it. This is actually sitting on the edge of forever, apparently.
Oh, well, they'll find out their tone eventually through the episode, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a time travel episode. This is also our second version of a parallel Kirk.
Ooh.
Which is kind of interesting. They bring Kirk into the show twice already, yet we haven't met the real Kirk yet.
Yeah.
I mean, except Sam.
Yeah, they've been hiding him from us.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this here. I'm going to start off with Security Officer's Log. Security Officer's Log, stardate 158.1.2. Nobody told me when I took this assignment just how many friends it would make for me. It is a well-known fact that people love it when you bring them bad news. And quite frankly, who doesn't find having their belongings searched endearing? So, Leanne is kind of our viewpoint character at the start of this episode. She's having a little bit of an issue with her chief security job. There's been some thefts. Spock apparently plays his Spock rock a little too loud. And our dear friend Pelia appears to be a little bit of a thief.
Well, maybe just a little bit of a hoarder.
A hoarder of stolen goods.
I don't know. I found her case to be pretty convincing. In that
I did like that line. Just in case this whole socialist utopia thing turned out to be a fad. I thought that was great. That was really funny. So we might as well address the fact that we're doing this for a third time.
Yeah, this is our third time on launch. I'm not going to lie. I'm reaching a little bit because I didn't manage to get our regular rewatch in. For context, I always try and rewatch our episodes.
Yeah.
Just immediately the day before or the morning of, so that way I got a fresh view, fresh perspective on that. Scheduling for that went completely out the window this week.
Well, I started to edit the episode that we had actually managed to get recorded.
Yeah.
And this was before you and I started recording in person. For some reason, our remote recordings just like after the first one just fell apart.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but the timing, it seems like there was a 10-second gap between me speaking and you hearing. And
yeah.
So I started to edit the other night. I know Will has been bothering me every day. Hey, I need the clips so I can get them up on YouTube. Sorry. I started to edit, and they sounded really bad. So tonight we're going to do kind of a quicker version of a recap, which is a shame because this is a really good episode.
Oh, yeah.
But we've talked about it so much already, I'm just kind of out of material.
Yeah, we unfortunately burned up all of our best bits on a failed recording.
Yeah.
But that's quite all right because, frankly, it's just a really good episode to me. I can rib about Picard Season 2 and the similarities between the plot beats for quite a good while.
Yeah.
Honestly, longer than anybody would want to listen to it, I'm sure. But no, it's just a very solid episode, very solid time travel episode.
Yep.
And no, we'll get more into the City on the Edge of Forever links as we get on. But,
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So after Lon deals with the couple of things with Spock and Pelia and the random crew members, we cut to a fight scene with her and M'Benga. Again, M'Benga is the actor whose name is escaping me right now.
Yeah.
He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He plays Jamis in the new version of Dune, which means they hired him at least for part of his fighting ability because that's a big knife fight.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the story. And he's fighting with La'an. She's distracted. She's bothered. And Dr. M'Benga thinks probably lonely. So that kind of takes over part of the story. He starts using stuff a little more Aikido-ish where he's turning her own momentum and movement and anger against her.
Yeah.
He's telling her basically just like, hey, we should probably deal with this. And then she's like, you know what? I'm out of here. As she's headed down to the decks, a strange light catches her eye, and there's a dude in a gray suit hanging out, and obviously that doesn't belong on the Enterprise. She runs up, realizes the guy's been shot, but not by a phaser. He's been actually hit by a bullet, and he's bleeding. And the gray-suited man says there's been an attack in the past and urges La'an to stop it. She makes her way to the bridge, approaching who she assumes to be Captain Pike. But the man that turns around in his chair
is Jim Carrey.
Kirk. Jim Kirk.
That was my first thought whenever I seen it. I don't know if it was the shading in that scene or if it was maybe just the shadow in the right place. But as soon as he turned around, all I could think of was the mask.
So people started pointing that out, obviously, with the Balance of Terror redo from the previous season. And after people started pointing it out, it became hard to not see for me, it just started as like a casual, like, oh yeah, I can see those two look alike a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after everybody started beating that point up, then I was like, I know I can't unsee the Jim Carrey resemblance.
It's just been photoshopped into your mind's eye now.
Exactly. And I'm having flashbacks. There was a show when I was younger called In Living Color, and Jim Carrey either once did or occasionally did, I don't remember, a bit where he played Captain Kirk.
We should probably get a little sound clip of that.
Oh, yeah, right.
See if we can
about
beep.
Hey, mister, you can't come in here and talk to me like that. Uhura, get me Starfleet Command.
Yes, Captain.
Oh!
there. So, one of my favorite bits here, of course, is he turns around and says to her, ma'am, not to be impolite, but who are you and what the hell are you doing on my ship?
And cue intro.
And then we go into the intro. So, at this point, they got a nice setup. What the heck is Jim Kirk doing here? Why is he captain? Blah, 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 blah. As we go into the opening of the episode, Uhura reports that there's a nearby Vulcan ship hailing them. The captain orders a channel open, identifying himself as James T. Kirk of the United Earth Fleet ship Enterprise. Now we also understand why the badges are so very different.
Right.
The Vulcan ship is, of course, captained by Mr. Spock.
Small world.
A very small world. And apparently the Vulcans are losing a war to the Romulans. Kirk wants no part of that. I don't know if that's a self-preservation or an earth preservation. I was just shocked to see that a version of Kirk says no to a version of Spock.
Yeah. Well, you got to throw in the subversion there.
You do.
When
you
have
to buck reality a little bit, you know.
And doesn't he make a line in there that says, at one point in time we could have been friends, but right now I have a loyalty to something.
Oh, he might. He could echo some of the not Errand of Mercy, but the Balance of Terror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw some kind of something in there.
Yeah. Also at this point, he turns down the fighting with the Vulcans because they're already fighting a war on two fronts, which I don't get because a war with the Romulans is a war with the Romulans. So maybe
the Klingons are
involved because in the past we did know the Klingons and Romulans did have alliances.
Yeah. Maybe they accidentally encountered the Ferengi early and...
Maybe. I mean, not that that's much of a war. Those guys are... You just be like, hey, here's a bunch of gold that we made up in our... Oh, they didn't have replicators. No. Hey, here's a bunch of square food-like objects and some other stuff maybe, you know.
There's some real shiny stuff we found.
So they decide, Lon and Kirk decide they're going to go in the conference room and talk about what's going on. So Kirk isn't buying what she's selling. And she's pitching this story about being from a parallel universe where it's completely different. She keeps trying to appeal to his Starfleet captainness, but he's never heard of Starfleet, so it's not really going over real well. And let's see here. They start fighting over whatever device it was that the gray suit bloody bullet guy gave her. And wham, bam, thank you, spam. Somehow they end up somewhere else.
No, they end up worse than somewhere else. They end up in Toronto.
Or Toronto, as the natives would say, because they're in a hurry. They only pronounce about half the letters. Yeah. I hear Toronto's a nice city. I've never been. I also hear it's cold, which they quickly decide that is probably the case. Kirk thinks they're in New York because everybody on TV thinks they're in New York, regardless of where they film at. Even Jason Voorhees once thought he was in New York, but was really in Vancouver. So they decide that they're going to have to go get some clothes before the sun sets because it gets cold up north. Pardon me while I bounce around. I'm reading off my phone here, which is something I'm not quite used to. Oh, that was a good line too. She brings up them being in Toronto rather than New York. And she's like, you know, it used to be called Canada. Maple leaves, politeness, poutine. That's kind of great. So they decide they're going to go get some clothes. They head into a department store, steal clothes, find out they like to dress about the same. Kirk decides to change, frame somebody else for theft, and then they bounce out.
It's the Starfleet way.
It is.
The United Earth way, excuse me.
Yeah. I imagine if he had had a pair of glasses to sell, he probably would have tried that first.
Yeah.
But, you know, that wasn't the case here.
Darn.
But they decide that they can't go around stealing everything, so they're going to have to figure out a way to make money. Not to sound crass, but I could think of a way or two for lying to make money. I don't know what Kirk would do.
Well, apparently hustling chess, which was a thing.
Yeah, never saw that coming. So I used to gamble a little bit, not a lot. My father was quite the gambler when he was around. Mm-hmm. But one thing I know about gambling is you got to have stakes to start. And usually the best you can do at a game like chess is double your money.
Yeah.
So that giant wad of cash that Kirk makes, who gave him his first $5 or $20 to get started? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Did he happen to just find a 5 or 10 spot on the side of the road, or how'd they manage that one?
It could be, because I can tell you as an American, when I go to Canada, I don't really treat their money like it's money.
Yeah.
I remember I left a fistful of coins one time out for a maid for a tip. And upon leaving, I realized there was probably about $80 there. But it's because their $1 and $2 bills are coins.
Right.
And I left a couple fives and then a big old fistful of change that was acquired over a week. And I realized, oh, God, I have no idea what I just left there. Right now I can literally go in my underwear drawer and get out a billfold that has $100 in Canadian fives that I've had for 7 years that I'll probably never spend. It looks like circus money. I treat it like circus money. So maybe there were some Americans in Toronto just leaving cash laying around everywhere. And Kirk was like, hey, $5 bill. Look at that.
Bada bing.
So Kirk sits down, plays some 3D chess, which we know he's good at, and we know he can beat Vulcans at.
2D chess.
Oh, I'm sorry. He plays 2D chess because he calls it idiot's chess compared to the three-dimensional game. So they get some money. They go get a really nice hotel room. That was just my standard 10 p.m. alarm. Everybody please ignore that. They go get a really nice hotel room that I have a hard time believing that they won the money playing chess to get that room.
Yeah. How many games of chess did you manage to play before the sun even set?
Yeah, because they were already getting cold, so they were worried about the sun setting pretty soon.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Commander Dog? They were worried about the sun setting pretty soon, so they didn't have a whole lot of time. And at no point did anybody who was getting hustled by old Jim T. Kirk over there go, hey, man, I think you're cheating or stop playing. They just let him win. Because I've stayed in small hotel rooms in Canada that were $300 a night.
Yeah.
A suite, I have to imagine, is $600 or $700 in Toronto.
Well, don't forget this is the future too, because wasn't this in 2025 or something?
I thought it was this year, because I thought it was the same year that Picard Season 2 happened.
It could have been. I wasn't sure about the year. It's, like I said, it's been a minute, so I can't really remember the year, but that would be just hilarious. That's got to be the year of modern Star Trek time travel. Yeah,
and that's kind of the weird thing is that if I remember right, while this is going on, Picard Season 2 is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So their editors never spoke to each other. Never said a word to each other about this, I
mean, at this point, it looks like Starfleet Academy already has a pre-built time travel course on the year 2023 alone.
Yeah. And it's like, by the way, if you go to 2023, be careful because a lot of our crew is there. Just kind of hanging around,
Just ignore them. Maybe check the travel dictionary first.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't bump into them. If you do, don't bring up phasers because that always causes problems.
Yeah.
And that means that when Dr. not Arik, who was it? Alec, whatever Noonien-Singh was there.
Yeah.
He's reading in LA about Project Con, but we got a little something we're going to bump into later that makes me question some of that.
I wonder
what I could be talking about. So while they're staying in this room, they keep peeping on each other in their private sleeping areas. Okay, so we see they're building a romance. We kind of get the point of what's going on here. They wake up, but is it the next morning? They wake up, Lon's all hot to trot, ready to go to figure out what they got to do to stop whatever is going to happen. Kirk's a little less convinced. He's not so sold on the whole matter.
Right.
Because he realizes if they make the change she wants to make, his timeline gets wiped out.
He seems to be very casual about that, too. I mean, on one hand, yeah, your timeline's about to get wiped out. But on the other hand, if that was his real concern, you'd think he would, being Jim Kirk, would be motivated to some sort of action at that point.
Well,
kind of just...
But if doing nothing brings about his timeline...
Right.
Then do nothing.
Yeah, but what would Lon do if he decides to do nothing? He wouldn't know.
Yeah.
One way or another. So I would have thought that he would
baffle her with brilliance somehow, charm her some way.
Yeah.
Pull
out one from the old playbook.
We'll go do what you're looking to do. Hey, look, something shiny right over here.
Yeah. A little distracting even.
While they're hanging out, trying to figure this. Is this where they have the conversation about his brother?
I'm not sure.
This is where me having not seen this super recently comes into place.
Yeah.
Well, we discover about Kirk's world, Earth was attacked. Nobody lives on it, apparently. The sun never rises or sets because there's so much crap in the sky. There are people living on the moon and in space and everywhere else, but Earth itself is just a desolate wasteland. I missed the hot dog scene, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I can't believe you wouldn't think that was a big deal.
Well,
it's hot dogs. The future runs on them.
This is true, huh? Trying to remember what all happens here. But anyways, while they're discussing this, they're trying to figure out where they need to be and what they need to be doing. A bridge explodes. And their awesome view in what must be in a very expensive suite in a hotel that they've paid for at least 2 days, because I know it's past checkout. They see this thing explode, and apparently it's the longest bridge in the world.
I wonder if they paid for the added plot convenience of the hotel, or if that was just a tip.
Who knows? It's hard to say, really, you know?
Yeah.
It's really hard to say. All right, so they decide that they're going to have to go check out this bridge.
Right.
As they're poking around, Lon sees something that catches her eye in the wreckage, and they go over and start harassing a local photographer or onlooker. We're not sure which. Lon's kind of rude about the whole thing. But she spots what must have been a photonic, I believe it was a photonic bomb that was used to explode this bridge, which is a piece of Earth technology or technology that shouldn't exist on Earth for another 100 years. So she's thinking this must be what they're looking for. But they both remember this incident. So it's not a point of divergence between their timelines because they both remember it. They did go and steal a Dodge Challenger Hellcat.
The perfect car for Jim Kirk.
Oh, yeah. Except we always do the bit where he doesn't quite know how to drive. They did this back in the Gangster Planet one, a piece of the action.
Yeah.
Where he just he understood how to drive mostly, but not quite all the way.
Yeah. Star Trek has a real history with poking fun at cars.
Yes.
They did it in Voyager. I can't remember when they would have done it in Deep Space Nine, but I'm almost certain there has to be some kind of episode through there. It's a very common trope. What are these ancient gasoline-powered engines?
Well, of course, one of the brilliant points here is that he uses a Vulcan neck pinch to knock out the driver or the owner of the vehicle. Anybody that watched the original series must remember Kirk occasionally telling Spock, "You got to teach me how to do that." Lon's like, "Hey, where'd you learn how to do that?" And he goes, "Oh, I was in a Denobulan prison. My cellmate was a Vulcan. I can make plomeek soup in a toilet, too." These are all just great lines they managed to work in here.
And I was going to bring it up, but I can't for the life of me remember the name of the band. But whatever music started playing when Kirk and Lon were going on this little car chase scene with this Dodge.
Yes.
Yeah. I had looked it up when we had first recorded the episode, and I can't for the life of me find my notes on it now. But that band also ended up doing a track or two for the Scott Pilgrim soundtrack back in the day.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Maybe if we figure out who it was, we'll at least get it put in the notes.
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim, that was a fun movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I never read that comic, but the movie I always enjoyed quite a bit.
I always find it funny how many roads lead back to Star Trek when you look at the connections between music and actors and things like that.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, Star Trek's been around forever, quite literally at this point.
Yeah. I think the only more common one that I could find is possibly Kevin Bacon, but Kevin Bacon connects to almost everything actor-wise.
Oh, absolutely. And he pushed it out far enough, producer-wise, director-wise, you really start getting into, how many steps does it take to get from Kevin Bacon to Star Trek?
Something we could look up for the notes as well.
Yeah. They have a discussion about his middle name. He's as discreet as my middle name. She's, "No, I've seen your middle name. It's something weird." And he's like, "Tiberius isn't weird." And as they're talking, he calls her La'an Noonien-Singh, which kind of startles her a little bit because she realizes he's never heard the name Noonien-Singh.
Bingo.
And now we start focusing in on a few different things that are going on here. Another great bit here is, "Oh, what's your brother's middle name?" What does she throw out there? It's like, Aurelius or something? And he goes, no, it's Sam. That's why everybody calls him George. George Samuel Kirk. It's like, nobody calls him George. I think it's around this point is where we realize that, so because she knows Sam, Jim realizes that Sam's alive in her timeline. And now his behavior starts to change. He's thinking, well, maybe that is the better timeline to save. Earth is in better shape.
Right.
Sam's still alive. Apparently things aren't quite as drab and dreary as they are where I come from.
Starts tugging at the old heartstrings.
Yep. They end up getting pulled over by the cops. And it does not look well. Looks like they're going to be headed to the Hooskow. And then that strange photographer that they harassed shows up and starts saying that Kirk is some kind of American civil rights lawyer. Between that and an emergency call, the police, Toronto's finest there, they decided to just, you know what, we'll just let this go and bounce. Which, as an American, I have a hard time with.
Yeah. I just recently, within the last couple of weeks or so, started... Because when I do my daily YouTube browsing for background noise, my tastes just get a little random and eclectic, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know? I'll just be on my daily whim or whatever. I'll dive into something for a day or two and be done with it. But I recently got into those First Amendment audit videos.
Oh, yeah.
Where those guys will go up and start harassing the police.
Yeah, I watched a whole bunch of those maybe 6 months ago, yes.
Yeah. And I seen one where one of the guys was trying it with Canadian law enforcement. It did not go so well.
No, you don't have the rights in Canada that we do here.
Yeah.
Canada, this idea that America is the only free country, not true, but our freedoms are different than they are in other countries. There is no guaranteed right to free speech in the UK.
Correct.
You can be sued for saying things. Matter of fact, newspaper publishers are sued all the time for saying things that they can't verify.
Mm-hmm.
Their libel laws are very loosey-goosey and, in favor of things. So in the Canadian one, is there like a quick example you can give?
Yeah. The guy, I've seen a couple of them where someone will get pulled over, whether wrongly or not. Whatever. They go up, ask for the ID. Have I committed a crime? No, we're investigating a crime. And then I don't need to show you my ID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not brave enough and or stupid enough to try it myself, but 9 times out of 10, it seems these guys get away with it. So good on them. But that is not something that flies in Canada.
No.
So when the guy came up and said, am I being charged with a crime? He says, yeah, you're acting suspicious. And he's like, is that a crime? Yeah, step out of the car. Because that is a crime in Canada. Yeah. You can't just hang around acting suspicious.
No. I can't remember. There's one of the European countries. It's actually the other way around. If you're accused of a crime, the assumption is you're guilty.
Yeah.
And you have to prove you're innocent. I don't remember where it was, but I remember hearing that. That's some of that like old school before the Magna Carta kind of, backwards Middle Ages crap, But because of the bystander they harassed, they the cops leave them alone. And then they end up taking this crazy person to lunch where they discover she seems to be some kind of crazy UFO person. And they're going to write her off as just some, whack job. But amongst her bunch of photographs is a Romulan bird of prey, a Romulan bird of prey.
Bum, bum, bum.
I don't know about the timeline, but, there it is. So.
And to be fair, that was a pretty messed up timeline as well, because the bird of prey that they showed was an original series bird of prey, like the kind we've seen in Balance of Terror. But if we're going to include my oft mentioned but not oft watched television program Star Trek Enterprise, the Romulans in that show had their own classes of ships developing parallel to Starfleet and the Klingons. And
so, the original idea behind that Balance of Terror was the Romulans had somehow stolen the plans for Constitution or whatever they were going to call it, those Starfleet class ships.
Right.
That's why it has a saucer section and 2 nacelles, because originally it was going to be based off of the Starfleet floor plan.
Right.
But which Balance of Terror is probably one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek. So, I'll take,
guaranteed.
Yeah, I'll take any reference to it we can get. I think one of the reasons Enterprise gets, I don't know, these days I'd say more people are open to watching it and considering it okay. And it definitely gets referenced a lot in the story. But I think one of the big problems with Enterprise was when they first meet the Klingons, it didn't go the way that Jean-Luc made it sound in that episode of The Next Generation. They bump into the Ferengi and there's Romulans in here and
the Borg.
Our
favorite.
Yeah. It felt more like a precursor to Star Trek The Next Generation than it did to Star Trek.
Right.
Just stuff like that, I think, kind of is what got in the way of it.
Yeah, they couldn't get away without their references.
Yeah. So Kirk brings up to her that he saw a Romulan vessel in there, and they start trying to figure out that, they're looking for some kind of Romulan tech that could be used. And this is where they decide it must be something nuclear. My mouth is dry. I was about to say nuclear.
I'm pulling a George Bush today.
Yeah. I think it was Reagan, actually.
I always thought it was a W.
Oh, well, maybe it was. So what they need is an engineer who won't ask questions. Now, we harken back to a little conversation that happened earlier in the episode when Liane was talking to a certain sticky-fingered engineer.
Prolific collector.
I'm sorry. Yeah. A treasure hunter.
Indeed.
Yeah. And she happens to know that Pelia is somewhere right now as an archaeologist. So they decide that they're going to take a much longer trip than they're going to make it look. Down to Vermont is where they're going to head.
Right.
And find Pelia and get her help. I can't remember how they say they do this. A border guard bribe, 2 cabs, 16 buses, and a ferry or something.
Don't forget the horse ride.
Oh, a horse ride, horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah.
They get down to the quote-unquote archaeology department, which we all assumed was going to be a school, part of a school. It is not. It's a knick-knack shop in Vermont.
And how many colleges do you think they went to before they realized that they were actually looking for a knick-knack store?
Yeah, that is a fine question.
I'm going to have to start brushing up my chess skills. Get enough money to do all that and have a top floor hotel room with plot convenience
all based on chess.
And a plot convenient transportation?
Yeah.
Come on.
That's apparently there's more money in hustling chess than I realized.
I spent all this time trying to learn how to count cards.
Yeah. And that only works if you have a single deck.
Yeah.
You get into multiple decks, it's almost impossible. So they go and dig up her little knick-knack shop. And now we start to see the actress of Pelia and her natural comedic timing, which is kind of a big deal. Of course, we referenced Taxi and all that in our first episode. Carol Kane is she's a good actress. She's done some very serious stuff. She was in When a Stranger Calls, which was a very scary movie at the time it was released, Yeah. But what I remember her from, Princess Bride, Taxi, it's always her comedic skills that
you know what? Side note.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually been up until recently years since I seen Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was just whim or that was what I found on Tubi or one of those sites that does the free TV.
Yeah.
And I ended up watching a bit of it and I seen Carol Kane in there and it took me a solid 5-10 minutes to recognize because the voice immediately struck me as, oh, I have heard that before. Yep. Who is that? And just after 5 or 10 minutes of thinking about it, I still couldn't get it. And I didn't get it until right when you just mentioned that. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yep.
Oh, my God. The time travel never ends. Now she's in the Middle Ages.
Yep. So Pelia tries to broom them, and then that's when La'an drops the, hey, I know your name, I know where you're from, and I happen to know you ain't human. All right, so going into this act, La'an has pointed out that she knows Pelia is a lanthanite and not a human. I don't know whether they kind of go back and forth about La'an had expected to find an actual archaeology department, not a knick-knack store, and we find out that Pelia is not an engineer.
Which makes sense. I mean,
totally makes sense.
You would think that for a species so long-lived or something, you know?
Yeah, you'd have to have a career change or two.
Makes more sense than spending 200-300 years as a barkeep, you know what I mean?
Yep. Except barkeep is... I'm one of those guys that I spend enough time at bars that I believe your relationship with your bartender is as important as your relationship with like your hairdresser or your barber or, people like that. Yeah. So we go through this whole thing where they're trying to figure out how a non-engineer that they spent like $10 million going to find can help them, find, hey, come here, Commander. Just chill out for a minute. We only got a little bit more, okay? I know you got a lot to say about this episode, but we're going to keep you for the notes for later. But they're trying to figure out how now they can continue to find what they're looking for. They stumble upon an idea of what they used to use in watches to give them a glow-in-the-dark face for divers. And they realize that, these watches would be dead now, but if you got them around a little bit of radioactive material, they would glow again. So they drank all of Pelia's beer. Hey, come here. They drank all of Pelia's beer and decided it's time to go back to Canada with one of their watches.
It's the least she could offer after all that.
I would think so, yeah. They get back to Toronto. They start playing kissy face a little bit. They're talking about, hey, maybe we could... Oh my God, that's going to bleed right through.
We ought to get a Best of the Commander episode going.
Yeah, we're going to need one. Everybody, the Commander, to try to keep her quiet, I've got her chewing on a bone, but she's decided to do it right next to the microphone. This may just be a sound you have to live with. They start playing a little kissy face. They start wondering if maybe there's a way they can figure out how to get Jim Kirk to her timeline, which sounds very, very reckless and stupid to me, but...
You know, the Department of Temporal Mechanics might have something to say about that.
Right. So they're walking around. They start playing kissy face a little bit, and then he notices somehow, I imagine because he kisses with his eyes open, that her watch is glowing. They have found the source of nuclear material that they're looking for. They start poking around a little bit. They find the Noonien-Singh building.
Bum, bum, bum.
And they wait for a little bit. First, I think they were trying to decide if they're going to knock somebody out and cut their hand off to try to unlock the handprint door. But they decided to try something different first. La'an walks up. Her handprint works. And then we hear a gun cocking behind them.
I always didn't. I couldn't understand how her handprint would work on that.
I have to assume that it wasn't a handprint. It was a genetic thing, but I don't know how you would have an optical reader pull up genetics from a hand.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's sci-fi. Okay. Transporters, they should kill you every time you use them. The microbes in your gut probably shouldn't go with you, or they should appear in the rest of your cells when you get to the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta just give Star Trek some room.
Yeah. Just let it do its thing.
Let it breathe a little, But we discover that Sarah, the kooky photographer, is a Romulan spy.
Bum, bum, bum.
Now, one of the most interesting things I think Star Trek has added to its very long history comes up in this conversation, or in the continuing of this conversation. The Romulans have been monkeying around with Earth's timeline to try to keep them out of galactic politics for 100 years at least. And because of this, the eugenics wars have been pushed back 60, 70 years.
Right.
So now we can start to see why our timeline doesn't match up with Star Trek's original timeline. And now we start to have what I call the Terminator issue with Star Trek history.
Right.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I have always wondered if John Connor, the original John Connor in Terminator, wasn't Kyle Reese's son. But he knew sending Kyle Reese back would ensure that his mother would live and would ensure that his mother knew about the Terminator War and that he would be trained for the next coming future. I always wondered if the second John Connor wasn't the first John Connor because of time monkeying like that.
You know, Terminator as a franchise gives me a massive freaking headache.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly have not seen through a whole movie of that franchise in recent years, except for T2. I'll watch it every now and again. It's one of my and my mother's favorites.
See, I love the first one.
Yeah.
Because the first one's a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the same way with a lot of the franchises back then, too. Alien, Predator.
Yeah. First one's a horror movie. Second one's an action movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but this little bit of dialogue in this scene made me think of was the Marvel series, which in our first recording, I blanked out on the name on. But now that they are launching a season 2 of it coming up soon, I remember is What If?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think they could take that one little line of dialogue and turn that into a whole, like they could do a short Treks thing. Like, what if the Enterprise wasn't the first ship to encounter a Borg cube? What would happen if it was?
Oh, there's so much what if you could do with Star Trek.
Yeah, that would be such a good series, too. They wouldn't have to do much with it either. Yeah. They could just do little 5-10 minute episodes. They could animate it. They could do anything with it. I mean, you know?
what if Locutus hadn't been rescued from the Borg?
Right.
You know, just so many things that you could continue to do that, so many jumping off points. What was the episode where Worf, every time he blinks his eyes, basically he's in a parallel universe?
Yeah.
That was a great one because that one even just showed like, well, here's big changes. Here's little tiny changes. Mm-hmm. You know, you came in first place. You came in runner up. You know, just like these little tiny things that changed.
Little details that have the biggest difference.
Yeah. It's that butterfly effect, you know. What if a butterfly flapping its wings causes a tsunami halfway around the world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think they could go at least give us a good season of television.
Oh, absolutely, like you could.
I want to see a lot more. I mean, it's not just related to Star Trek, too. There's a lot of franchises right now that I think saw the success of the multiverse thing that's going on with Marvel right now and either could or possibly thinking about setting themselves up in a position to start doing some of the same things, but maybe just don't think of it.
You know, it's kind of wild now that Paramount and CBS are back under one company.
Right.
You could cross over the JJ verse with the standard Star Trek universe. And now that you have new younger actors playing classic roles, you could have older JJ verse Kirk and Spock run into younger Prime Universe Kirk and Spock. Start putting your head around some of this stuff.
Oh, this would get wild.
Yeah, because I mean, the JJ verse, you know, that was 2009. That was almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
And now we've got new, younger versions of Kirk and Spock. And they could run into old versions of Kirk and Spock who already ran into an old version of original Spock. I mean, you could really start doing some interesting stuff.
I think Discovery made a mention at one of the episodes in season 3.
They did, because they showed a person wearing a next gen uniform, but it turned out they were from the JJ verse.
Yeah. Like, it would be so cool to watch them get into some of this stuff.
Yeah, you could do a lot with it, and I think it would be kind of cool. You'd have to be careful because, you know, you can't overdo it.
Yeah.
And you can't, like this little fact of like, oh yeah, the eugenics wars happened 60, 70 years later than we originally said it did. you can't let that actually change anything that happened in the original series.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff has to be left alone, you know. So you got to be careful with it. But yeah, it can be real interesting to see what they do. So Sarah, the Romulan spy, shoots and kills James T. Kirk. And then takes La'an hostage. They go into the Noonien-Singh building. And La'an starts putting it together, talking it out, and realizes this lady is here to kill Khan. And they see the door with little kids' drawings and little kid writing, and it's Khan's room. At first, I didn't know how I felt about it, but it was very interesting just to see the idea of, hey, here's little kid Khan. And in time travel stories, you always hear that thing, what if you could shoot Hitler, but he was a baby?
I was actually just thinking about that one as well. And I don't know if it was an extension of that, or where I remember the premise coming from was a Twilight Zone episode. Yeah. Not the original series, but one of the remake editions. I can't remember if it was the 80s one or the 2000s one with Forrest Whitaker, but it was one of those. And there was this guy who he was sent back in time specifically to kill Hitler. He goes through the whole hour-long of shenanigans trying to get it set up right, ends up managing it, succeeds. And Hitler's parents go out and adopt a kid, and the kid they adopted ends up growing up to be
Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if this is just, I mean, I guess, you know, not what if, because that's the plot of the episode.
Yeah.
But what if that was the case? Would she just have to kind of stand around and wait on the Khan production line? Make sure they didn't just...
something else didn't happen. Yeah.
I mean, talk about going home. You're not going to go home anymore. You're going to have to sit there and get the 72,000 versions of Ricardo Montalban they push out.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. Cause like Khan's going to happen. The eugenics, would you stop, please? But the eugenics wars are going to happen no matter what. Cause they say we have done everything, and all it does is push it back a little further each and every time.
Right.
So now that Khan is a genetic experiment instead of just selective breeding, that means there's probably vials and vials and vials full of just Khan somewhere.
Yeah.
Just waiting to be, you know, sperm plus egg, and boom, another Khan.
Reminds me of the Jurassic Park, the novel. You read the novel, all the different dinosaurs have like T-Rex version 3.9, like software. They got Khan version 1.5 right here. They got 1.6 just down the hall. Yep.
So this is an ongoing thing. Lon kind of gets the drop on the Romulan, takes her out, talks to Khan for a minute, and he's like, are you going to kill me? And she's like, no, basically you are right with knowing what him being alive is going to be. It's going to be the eugenics wars and World War III, which will lead to Zefram Cochrane somehow not being from Alpha Centauri anymore. And then the Vulcans, and then blah, 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 blah. She goes back to her own time, gets on the ship. Everything's where it's supposed to be. A woman from the temporal mechanics department, whose department doesn't exist yet, is there to recover any evidence and tell her she can't tell anybody about it. She calls Jim Kirk in one of the saddest Star Trek moments I can recall, and breaks down crying. And that's the end of the episode.
Such a happy ending.
Yeah, it really was. Like, I get a little choked up just looking at that going, God, that sucks.
Yeah. And not to leave an open plot thread, but leading back to City on the Edge of Forever, that loss that Lon had to go through in a lot of ways mirrors the same loss that Kirk would have to go through.
The Edith Keeler death, yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention, I believe it's been a tragically long time since I've seen such a wonderful episode of Star Trek. But if I remember correctly, it was something to do with, wasn't the plot of that something to do with pre-World War II?
So what that was Edith Keeler was a pacifist who was preaching pacifism in America. And when McCoy saved her life, pacifism took off in America. Fascism took off in Europe. We never joined World War II. Hitler conquered the world.
Simple enough.
Yep.
Classic Harry Turtle Dove maneuver.
Yep. The full turtle dove, except it was not Jake Featherstone.
And it was not Aliens.
It was not Aliens. That was a good series, too.
That really was.
Yeah.
You got me into that, actually.
Oh, is that right?
I don't know if you even remembered, because you had mentioned something to our grandparents about it when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and why that is just a core memory in my head, that half a conversation.
That's funny.
About that book series. It was.
Yeah.
And when I finally ended up making my own money to start buying my own books, and I could go on Kindle and find my own books, I ended up picking up that whole series, and I killed it in less than 3 months. All that was out at the moment.
Yeah.
Excellent work.
That was really good. I love that when you get to the end of that, when the humans go to fight the race, go to their home planet, the first ship that goes there actually ends up there second, because while they were on a Generation sleeper ship, we discovered the space warp. So we got other ships there ahead of them.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. That was all great stuff. How would you rank this episode? What did you think of the time changes?
I would put this another one of my 9.9 out of 10. Always love a good time travel episode. This one I thought was just fantastic. Just to bring up a point one more time, Star Trek Picard season 2, but done better.
Yep. Faster.
Better and faster. That's always a win.
Yeah.
Not to say that season 2 of Picard again wasn't.
No, it was good.
It was great. But I like the pacing of this more, and I would put that as a point just a little bit above, it's made for a 45, 50-minute episode for TV over a 10-episode season.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things, like, you notice everybody's first book series when they try to self-publish and write, it's always 13,000 page super grand epics.
Yeah.
But a really seasoned professional writer can cut that down to 230 pages and get the same story across.
Yep.
Yeah.
Literature in motion.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely give it an 8 or 9. It does the thing that I'm becoming a little bit worried about, and it's Star Trek's own self-referentialness. Yeah,
and I remember that as a comment at some point that was on one of the topics of our last episode as well.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned that the world of Star Trek, or rather the galaxy of Star Trek, universe, however you want to refer to it, is incredibly vast yet extremely small.
Yeah, every time you reference something else from its own history, it just shrinks its capacity, It's like, always having the Romulans as the bad guys when we've got a vast galaxy out there that you could, pepper in 1 or 2 more from,
Yeah.
Even though I happen to love the Romulans as bad guys.
Oh, yeah. And that's a thing, too, because all the Romulans are always... I can't remember an episode off the top of my head from the Next Generation era where I thought, oh, man, why did they write the Romulans like this?
Yeah.
Always thought they were written wonderfully back then. Yeah,
one of the things, though, I think that happens, or happened, because, the bad guys in Star Trek 3 are originally going to be Romulans. That's why they're in a bird of prey.
Right.
But that's when they switched. Because if you remember in Balance of Terror, Romulans were very honor driven and this, that, and the other. And that's when they start switching the nasty, backstabby, secretive Klingons with the honor bound Romulans, and their behaviors started to swamp. I did like in Picard season 1 when they got into how secretive the Romulans were. Their houses all have a fake front door. They all have a first name that nobody else knows. And these little, they're so secretive about everything they do.
Whole society based on paranoia.
Yeah. It makes you wonder just what happened to them when they left Vulcan that made them this different, Okay. So that was tomorrow. I guess we didn't rush it. We got probably 40 minutes out of it. So I guess that wasn't too much of a rush there.
Not bad.
Yeah. I think we're going to try to do some shorter episodes that we string together for the podcast, but that are specifically made for YouTube next, just some discussion episodes.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to figure out how to fill in the time. The SAG-AFTRA strike is over. They're getting ready to start producing season 3 of Strange New Worlds.
Thank the Lord.
But we're going to have a lot of time to fill in. So we're going to experiment with some content here to see how we can expand our take on season 2 and continue going. So we'll see how we can handle all that. It seems to me like the commander is, I don't know, man. What was that City Edge of Forever? What did McCoy get stuck with? What was that drug? Because that's how she's acting.
I don't know, but I left my Ketracel white bag open when I came in, so she might have got into that.
That's what it probably was.
My bad.
That's got to be it. Well, Henry, thank you for coming in. I do appreciate you. I'll see you in about a week, I imagine.
Yeah. Thank you for having me over as always.
Yeah. You want to sign off? You got anything to go out on?
Only that in the event that you find yourself lost in the past or flung to the far reaches of the future, always remember there's a cart of stagnant hot dog water waiting for you just around the corner.
Ew.